Okay, this is my Pro 4896 CNC router parts CNC machine. A lot of good videos out there on this machine, hardly any on how to build your table though. So I'm just going to show you how I approached my table. 2x4s. What I started out doing was I took the rounded edge off the 2x4 in my joiner, and then ran the other side through and trued them up to exactly 3 inches. I didn't want that rounded edge at all these joints, where a 2x4 usually has a rounded joint that makes a fat seam, and then as you can see I wanted a nice smooth seam, so I blocked them all off and got them perfect rectangles and trued up the board. CNC will not rest on the MDF at all. The cross rails will, but all the rails and everything will be resting solely on the 2x4s. This made it really easy to square the table up. About 4 hours later, it's all dry. Looks good. I like the textured finish on it. Here you can see my leveling legs, which are just a simple little. You could do them 2 ways. You could put them on the outside or the inside. I chose the inside. Next is how are you going to attach your table to your extrusions. Most people have access underneath their table, I guess, to put brackets and screw their table down. I of course do not, since I used a solid sheet of MDF. So it's too hard to line up the holes. So what I've done is I've made these individual strips. And here's the very last one I'm getting ready to put in. You can see there's the roll-in T-nuts. And I'll just line that up and screw down these strips. The gap in the middle of all these is so that in case I need to adjust it to get the screws set into place. And then I'm just pulling them all back even to the edge of the machine. That gives me a nice even spacing on all my strips. And then all you have to do is screw your spoil board directly down on top of these strips, and it becomes really easy to do the rest of the project. And I'll show you how I plan on tackling the rest of my spoil board all the way to the completed table. Let me show you how the table's progressing. These were the strips that connected to the extrusions. That let me screw down my primary surface board down directly to these little strips. I moved the strips all the way out to the edge of the gantry rail steel rod, and I'll show you why in a minute. On top of this board is where I'll attach my primary surface boards, and they are 18 by 9 3/16 of an inch with 15 T-nuts recessed into the bottom, and they'll screw down to the very first surface board and these recessed holes, and I'll screw all these down to the board. And if one goes bad and I have to resurface my table, I won't have to resurface the whole table. I'll just be able to take one of these 9 by 18s out and replace however many I need to replace to fix a damaged or scarred up area. This is how I squared my primary board to the table. I have this bit that came with one of my routers. It's for centering the main surface plate on the jig and getting it perfectly centered. But it's perfect for this application because it's nice and stiff and it won't bend. I just ran the gantry over to the edge of the primary board and ran the gantry up and down until the board was square against it. After it was square against it, I screwed down some blocks like these on the extended strip This is the reason I extended the strip out. I was able to screw down and lock the main board in. Once the board was locked in, it would slide up and down, but it wouldn't twist on me. After I got that locked down, I attached this board on the end. And I did the same thing with the gantry. I ran it back and forth perpendicular to this side and screwed this side down. So now I should have a pretty close to accurate square table to the gantry. These will be, I'll add these everywhere where these extensions, you see the extensions, and what that'll allow me to do is screw other boards into them for locking down a 4x8. And since I won't be screwing in these, I'll be screwing onto another one of these. When this piece of MDF gets all marked up and wore out from too many holes being in it, I'll just be able to take this block out, replace it with a new block with 2 holes, and screw the other block on this block, and I don't have a fresh block every time to manually screw my jigs down. The reason why these surface boards are 9 3/16 of an inch is because I'm going to have T-track that runs down in between them, and that's what I found out to be 49 inches. Also on my table, I work from the end of my table instead of the side like most of you probably work on the side of your machine. I work at the end of my table, and when the gantry comes down, it will travel a full like 99 inches all the way down, but that leaves you nowhere to screw anything down on the very end to lock it in. So when I made my table, the table probably ends really about right here. I extended my board all the way out to here and gave myself an extra 5 to 6 inches of overhang, so I would have a place to lock down any jigs. I'll show you the rest of the table. Because I have the overhang on the end, I was able to, and you can see how much my table overhangs, I was able to add these nice ovals, and that's my quick shelf for my collet tools. And then down all below the table, along all the edges, you see more ovals, and that's so that I can, when I put my secondary shelf in here, that's so I can reach in here and get jigs and pull them out from anywhere around on the table. These also serve to stiffen the table so that it can't rack from side to side. And I found the perfect color paint to match the red that they're powder coating their metal with. It's called, it's made by Rust-Oleum, and it's called Colonial Red, and it's just about a dead-on match for their extrusions that they had powder coated. So now all I need to do is add the final 19-inch spoil board on here and put 5 more sets of my removable spoil boards. And again, you can see how the tracks will be laid long ways, and every 36 inches it'll have a track this direction. And what I'll do so I can get jigs in and out of it is the rack, the extrusions will stop here and they'll stop here, and that'll leave a perfect square for getting in your fixtures and your jigs every 36 inches and sliding them down to lock in your work. And the next video that I'll make, that I'll edit onto this video, will be my CNC dust shoe, which will be a fixed adjustable dust shoe. Okay, I wanted to show you the dust shoe I'm currently building. I've got this piece of 3/4 inch Lexan. You can notice I left a kind of a semicircle in here. That's to help with the brush bend over for the suction. That keeps more of a distance away from it. I have a pocketed out area for my Auto Zero puck, this clear tube goes in here. That keeps the shadows and keeps it more lighted better. I'm gonna have a way to control the flow, the suction, and this could have been put right here, but I didn't want to obstruct the view any, so it'll end up on top of the tube instead, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Anyway, this goes in here, aluminum bracket, fits just like this, and when I get my brushes in, you can see this is the brush so far. This is the sample I requested, and that will end up on there just like that. So you can see I've got the plate screwed down. Wanted to show you how this goes on. And there it is. That's attached. Now the tube goes in. And it simply rides right there the whole time. It goes with me everywhere on the table. Anytime I need it, I just take it out and put it underneath and then put it back in the carrier. This is a look up on the top side. Here you can see I have my adjustability. Another aluminum bracket screwed into here. That gives you a full look at my dust collector. I use the Rockler dust collector handles, and they simply fit right up there. They let it rotate, and when you need suction, you can just pull off the top of the handle and you've got quick suction everywhere. In case you need to do anything on the table for maintenance. Okay, I've got it all installed. This is the part that lifts off if you need it to, and you can use it for suction on the table. It also gives you rotation as well. Here's the aluminum dust port. And you see I get a nice open view. So on my setup, I'm running this pendant from Vista CNC. At first I had trouble with it. It was triggering the e-stop, that's software e-stop that's built into it, and it was triggering it. I don't know why, but the good folks over at Vista CNC wrote me a new driver and disabled the e-stop. I don't need it anyway. I use the one that I'm using for my hard switch, and the problem has went away. And I like having all my controls right here, so that when I'm centering up the corner, everything's right beside me where it needs to be. On my dust shoe, you can see I've pocketed in a 1/4 inch pocket for the zero puck, and I simply, just put it down here, zero my piece, and stick it back up here. And all the wires are through the E-chain, so the puck goes wherever the bit goes. So my zero tool is always with me where it needs to be, close to the bit for zeroing. You can see my lights also run through all my E-chain. Then I have another light stripped up that's tucked into the extrusion. It's glued onto a piece of MDF that's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's glued onto that. and then it was fed through this extrusion, and it just gives me a light where there's a shadow underneath where your main gantry extrusion creates a shadow. It just eliminates that. Up here you can see the top of my dust shoe. This is something you can get from Rockler. It's a quick disconnect. I use them all in the shop for all my tools. The good thing about it is it lets it freely rotate as it's traversing around, so you don't have any issues with your tube having to do the bending in the tube. Instead, it can rotate freely here. That's what this bracket's doing. It's simply holding this here, and down here where the clear tube goes into the dust shoe, again, I don't know if you can see it, the lip, you can barely see the lip. It's pocketed and it lips down, and that holds the tube into here. The bracket holds the tube here, so it can't move back and forth, and it's rigid. And when you need some quick suction on the table to clean out a part, you could just remove the hose, do what you need to do, and stick it back on your piece. Because I use suction all through the shop for different tools, I needed a way to close the gate on and off, and since the tubes are 10 feet high in the ceiling, I didn't want to have to put the gate up here. So the gate is right here at this connection point, and most of you don't. You can just put the Rockler tube straight on this tube, but I'm using an aluminum gate. And you can see how nice the clear tube is for looking through your dust shoe. Again, I work at the end of my table. There's more room for me at the end, and because this is velcroed down, it doesn't matter how or where the table's oriented, the arrow's always going to send you this way and this way. I know when I was using my cordless keyboard, I had to make sure I was turned in the right direction, so the keyboard was oriented in the way that the arrow keys were moving with the axis. And with this fixed down, it's always in the right position, so you don't have to worry about grabbing the wrong button and crashing into your sensor or tripping a limit sensor. Also, my dust shoe strip brushes are removable. I don't like when they smash all the way down and all the way up when you're working on a piece. So they're proportional to what I'm working on. This 3-inch brush is set, so it will flex in when it gets down to the bottom of the piece, but not very much. And for quick bit changes, so that you don't have to put your tool through the brush, there's a quick set screw here that just unscrews, and take the pressure off the brush, and the brush will slide out of the rail just like this. So you can change your bit, and then when you're done, slide your brush back in and retighten back your thumb screw, and you're back in business. And if you're carving in Lexan or glass, and you have to be careful. If any of these brushes get any debris trapped in them, and that brush is scratching up against your piece of Lexan and the protective paper is gone, you potentially can scratch an expensive piece of glass. So you can just take all the brushes out and just run no brushes, or you can slide in a 1-inch brush and and your brushes just slide in super fast and simple. This one's made to slide this way. This brush is made to slide out to you, and when those slide out, they'll unlock the piece at the back that's pinned in. You don't even need a set screw back here because it's pinned in by the overhang. I wanted to show you how I'm holding down my work on my table. What I've done is I've taken, because my T-slot's right down, and they're left 3/8 of an inch above the spoil board. You can just pop down pieces of 3/4 inch waste in these on top of the T-track slot and make yourself a corner. I've got one going this direction and one going back down that direction, and then you've made yourself a corner. And then on the other side, I'll put pressure on it with these blocks that I've made, and nothing but a slot in the wood with a lip, and that'll catch my T-nuts and press up against it and secure the workpiece in. You'll notice I've got a lip on these. You can set your work on the lip and use the same pressure to lock down your board and raise your piece off the ground if you want to cut all the way through a piece for a cleaner cut. Some of my workpieces have pocket holes in them, and after the piece is secured, you can run a pocket hole through here. And the screw usually sticks out about 3/8 of an inch, and it'll go down in at an angle into the profile of your wood. You just make a little pinhole, and that'll secure your piece if you're really tight and have no way to get hold downs over the top. In an earlier video, I showed you the T-track intersections that I was making, and this is all that I use. Hardwood cherry, so you can get some bend and some flex in it if you do want to lock your piece down that way. And because I have intersections every 36 inches through the middle of the table, I'm able to feed my pieces through without having to work them all the way in from the ends. I can just work them in at any intersection that you see. Sometimes on your T-slots you want them flush to the top for some jigs that have a cam that locks pressure up against it, and you can still do that with these. You can, because these are 3/8 of an inch, you can pop down another piece on top of this piece, and you'll end up with a flush T-track. And because of the way it pressure fit in there, they won't even go anywhere. You can see right here, that way that leaves the T-track flush with the top, and you could just run another screw down through here if you needed to. I'll show you my workstation. You can see my NEMA enclosures for my electronics are mounted on the wall instead of the table. Just my preference to do it that way. It was so that when the wires exited out of the cable track, they just kept going straight and up in. There's the NEMA enclosure for the spindle. A nice little box here. Found it at a yard sale. It used to hold film strips. You can see I've got a lot of these containers. It was full of these little film strips from back in the 60s. Educational films on them. Works beautifully for all my hardware and tools that I use. I got two monitors. Of course, I normally just use the bigger 26-inch one so I can see it all the way from the end of the table.